All right. Well, welcome. This is Kirk Weber with my brother Kevin,
How you
and
doing?
we host our podcast Double Take, and we also write on the Apple blog. And we thought it would be kind of interesting. We saw a comment, a reply to Tom Nelshoppin's recent Apple 101 article
Calling the hit and run play.
calling the hit and run play. And Brett had a good comment saying like, what when you guys look at cards, what are some of the first things you look at? How do you view a card when you do that? Now, some for advanced players, this is not going to be something that they really care about. Probably, well, you might kind of. I mean, I would probably watch something that somebody said, but baseball cards are our kind of thing. If I'm looking at a golf card or a football card, I have no idea. Kevin just recently made a purchase of those games, and he's just going to go with whatever the card says.
Yeah,
Right?
maybe I'll learn something. But let me read real quick what Brett wrote, his comment.
Sure.
He wrote, really enjoy these 101 blogs. I'd love to read about what you look for when you first see a card to get a sense for how good it is or the different quirks that you can pick out based on different numbers. I'm relatively new, so a crash course would be awesome. Thank you. So that's what we're going to try to do.
All
All
right.
right.
So the reason we chose Johnny Bench is, well, he's Hall of Famer, great player. And also, this is his 1970 card, his career year, his 45 home run, hit almost 300 season, right? A younger Johnny Bench. He's only a few years into his career. And the first thing I notice is it's a single column card. And
Yes.
APA traditionalists like single column cards. There are benefits to them. Sometimes a double column card can be good. But in this case, this card would get into, especially as a catcher, monster areas. Why? Well, when you start looking at it, you see that there is an 11-1 and a 66-1, which
Mhm.
are automatic home runs, right? And the first thing that Kevin and I would always look at is what's on 11, 33, and 66. And you want to see numbers that are 0 through 7, basically, on those numbers. 7 on a 33 would be really weak,
Yeah.
but those are typically with no man on a hit. Now, any number that is 1 through 6 is going to be an extra base hit. And in the case of Johnny here, he's got a 22-5 that Kevin's
Mhm.
pointing out there, and he has the 44-6. That elevates this card to excellence. All right.
Monster type level. The other thing that you might see, like at 55, he's got an 8. Okay, Lou Gehrig will have like a 6 there, and Babe Ruth and some Barry Bonds cards, and there's several other players that have done that. That's very, very rare that you get um, a double or better number there. But so it'd be nice if there was a 7 there. This would really round the card out, make it look very, very
Very appealing. Yeah.
picturesque. That's really what it'd be. We like the 10 over here. A 10 is a good number because Johnny stole a few bases that year, I think 6. So a
Mm-hmm.
10 is always a hit with nobody on base. It's a single, and it's a stolen base with a runner on first base.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll give him some steals.
So yeah, he stole like 5 bases or so. So that's what's gonna, get him that in, but he's gonna need somebody on first base for that 10 to get him a steal, unless you did some sort of hit and run play with him, which would be a little weird, but you could try it.
Yeah.
The other thing
Other
that
thing,
he's not a good hit and run player because of
no.
just he only has 131, and 31s are
Hmm.
great for hitting and running. He
And
does walk an average number of times with 3 walks, right? And he has your traditional 2 9s and 3 8s there.
hmm
Okay.
You know,
Um,
he's only got 4 13s. I mean, back in this time,
mm,
that's a lot of strikeouts. Nowadays, you see guys with 7, 8, 9 strikeouts on their card. That's kind of standard for a lot of modern
right.
hitters. But that's too many for a good hit and run guy. And plus, he already has like the standard thing for a catcher where he's got a 36 and a 38, which are pass balls, wild pitches, stolen bases, and they get runners moved up automatically. So you don't need to mess with hit and run with this, and you're gonna take home runs away from
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, he has the 38 as well. So this is a nice, this is a great card. All right. And one that would be fun to play with. And it is, if you get a chance to play with it. Now, what else occurs is kind of a redone 1970 season, and some cards change as things go. So let's take a look at an alternative Johnny Bench card. Okay. And that, let me just kind of get it up on the screen here, is this one. Okay.
And
And
they
as you
go
can,
to the double column because in general it should produce a more accurate result if you are playing a season. Now I hear some guys sometimes talk about like, well, I don't care about that, but if it's going to be accurate for a whole season because I'm not doing a replay. Well, also it's going to reproduce what it would in a regular series or in
Mhm.
one game. I mean, it's representative of how he produced in the 158 games and 605 at bats that he had.
For
You know.
example, this 55-8 here doesn't have the 10 that Bench had, but if you look up at 14, 34, and 54, you'll see that he has 11s in the second column. Those are supposed to get him those stolen bases. Now, what you must keep in mind is that Bench could only get a steal in a particular game if someone was on first base or
Mhm.
he, something like that happened. Where in this case, he could conceivably roll a 0, and then roll one of those three numbers and get a stolen base on his own.
On
And
any situation. Didn't I mean it could be with a runner on third, nobody on, guy on second, whatever it might be, all those situations.
now what they did in the meantime with this card is he has, instead of the traditional 3/8, he has 4, 1, 2, and then he has 3 and 4 over here. So that can help him against a little lesser pitching,
Yeah.
but not that much, right?
Because eights are hits against C pitchers and nines are hits against B pitchers. And usually you have, your three and it's just a little bump. It's probably about 5 points on the batting average bump with an eight from what I've noticed. The nice thing here is this 35-9 that he has, because a lot of times I think it's about 50-50. You don't have very productive numbers on
Mhm.
35. And a nine is a good number there. You roll that and you get a hit or you move the guy up or something, that's good. They kind of
Mhm.
switched around where his 38 and his
Yeah, the 38 and 36 were in the third
36.
column on the previous card. But he still has both of those, and those can help out with batting average. The big thing that I think is interesting to kind of note is when you look at basically these numbers here, right? This here and this here and this here are always going to be hits, and the same thing with 44
Hmm.
and 22. And the other card does that too. You have 5 legit hits. Now, if you have
All
somebody
the
that has a lot
time.
of 7s or 10s and these 8s and 9s, those will at times not produce, especially against A or better pitching.
What we don't like is like this 7 here on 12 and 32. And now it doesn't matter because it's going to be like against a D pitcher when you get that second column. But those are going to be singles down here on 65. I mean, you don't mind the 11 so much because it's almost like a double. He
Hmm.
ends up on second, or this 41 here. But man, if you roll a 33-0 and then you roll a 41 and you got a single and there's a guy on first,
It's going to be
single guy
disappointing.
went to third or something.
Hmm.
Whereas on the first card, there's a 4. He had a triple.
Right.
That
So
that's a
like,
big
and
difference.
just to go back to that for a moment, all right. Sorry, I hit the wrong one. If you go back to this card, if you get one of those, it's an extra base hit or more.
Hmm.
Okay. 5 man on first is going to be a home run. 6 man on third is going to be a home run. That's going to give you satisfaction when you roll one of those prime numbers, 11, 33, 66,
Hmm.
22, or 44. But that 4, by the way, right here, this here is supposed to get him a few of the triples that he's supposed to
Hmm.
get. You can
It
get
will.
sometimes, 5s
Sometimes
can help,
fives, yeah. Even a
but
six sometimes.
that's where he's supposed to get him. Where if you look at the double column card, he has some 2s, right? He's got a 2 here in this column and a 2 over here. think it's just two of them. He's got a
And he's
four,
got the 4 there. Yep. Yep.
and
That
which
will
is
get
kind
some
of fun.
triples.
That's a little different, and that's going to he if he plays a whole season, that's what he's going to get some triples. But the thing that I think to keep in mind is, yes, he hit 45 home runs here, but he played in 158 games, which for a catcher is crazy. Not all of them were catching. That's why you
Yeah.
have other
Outfield, first base,
positions,
third base. Yeah.
yeah, up here, right? But 605 at bats and 45 home runs is not the same thing as somebody with 500 at bats or 510 at bats. And whenever you see a home run total for a card, you got to keep in mind that potentially could be not as powerful as you think, because it matters how many at bats they had.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the
And
2-1 should get him close to 40 home runs. And
mhm,
then on this other card, that 5 gets him, I think, almost, and a 4 gets a home run a frequent
right.
number of times too. And a 6 every once in a while, like with a guy on third. This card should probably produce close to 50 home runs. And this is an APA ball card,
Mhm.
because it is very dependent on who is hitting in front of him. And if like you were in a league in 1970 and you have a super team and you have a big on base guy in front of you and you put this card, he might hit 50, 55 home runs.
Right.
But if the double column card, it doesn't matter. That card's going to produce what he actually did,
Right. Like,
because
I
it
mean, he's
doesn't,
going to have
five's
Pete
not going to be a
Rose or
home run.
somebody
Mhm.
on base, and he's going to get some of those things going on if he's playing a replay sort of situation. But if you go back to this other card, um, with no one on base, you could roll a 44 and then roll a 33, and you got a home run.
Mhm.
Where with no one on base with the other card, yes, I mean, you could still roll a 44 and get a 7 and get a single, but with the original card, it's a double. That's what it
At
is.
worst, you're getting a double when you're
Right.
rolling those
But
numbers.
you
Yeah.
still could have the chance on these two numbers with the zeros to potentially get something more than a double. And I know you could with a 5 or a 6, but I think you could get a triple. You could get a single on a stolen base or something like that. It's going to balance his statistics
It's
more
not as
accurately.
reliant on who's in front of him. Let's say you did like all-time greats Reds team or something like that, and you put Pete Rose's, best season in front of him and Joe Morgan's best season in front of him, and you had that original 1970s card. That
Mhm.
card's going to hit 55 home runs and probably hit 10 triples and probably steal like 10 plus bases, and because of the players in front of it. This card would probably hit 293 with 45 home runs, no
Yeah.
matter who's in front of him. It's just going to
Right.
produce what it produces.
Because those second columns are going to be what they are,
Yeah.
especially since there's no fives in the second column.
And that's why
Um,
people don't like second column cards, because you can't play apple ball with them. They just kind
right.
of do what they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You know,
So
one of the reasons anyway.
that's kind of our breakdown. We thought that question that Brett had was good, and as we've talked with Tom Moore, we're looking down the line with the Apple blog and other things to try to go into some, for newer players. There's a lot of people that are getting these games and wondering about things. We mention things. We don't want to make assumptions. So if anybody watching this has any other ideas of cards to break down or topics that are good for new players or people that want refreshers on things, we would be glad to kind of talk
Yes.
about it and see if it helps. Right.
Mhm. Or on particular articles on different cards, Monster Card Mondays or Weird Card Wednesdays, or, Final Card Fridays or First Card Fridays, or Game Changers, any of the things on there. If there's something you want us to break down from any of those articles with a card, we'd be happy to do it. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for listening, and we'll try to do more.